2020 has brought us unprecedented times. The expectation that we can be immersed in suffering and loss daily and not be touched by it is as unrealistic as expecting to be able to walk through water without getting wet. We have a packed agenda for you today that we're sure you'll enjoy, starting with our opening ceremony, our reality, we are at risk, what are our risks, stages of quality of life, what is stress, vicarious trauma, responses to stress, signs of stress, what to do, breakout rooms, and of course, our closing ceremony. The events of 2020 have been sombering. Here is our current reality by the numbers. New York State has had a total of 1,328,973 cases, with 41,848 total deaths. Look at your boroughs to see the numbers.
Since the onset of the virus, 68 New York City DOE staffers, including 28 teachers, have died from the virus. Non-essential businesses were closed from March 16 through May 15, and many still have restrictions. Governor Cuomo issued executive orders mandating all people in New York to wear masks or face coverings in public. There are many who are unemployed, as many as 1.1 million New Yorkers, and $2.2 billion has been paid out by the Department of Labor. In addition, our personal realities have also been affected. Many of us are now spending all of our time alone for the foreseeable future, providing 24/7 care to our children without any breaks. Some of us are even shut in with horrible roommates, and I'm sure there are many other challenges that we could have never imagined. Margaret Mead advises that we should never believe that a few caring people can't change the world. For indeed, that's all who ever have. As New York City DOE managers, we are at risk in our professional lives due to insufficient recovery time, lack of systemic resources, dealing with large numbers of traumatized students and families. The research shows that dealing with children who have experienced trauma makes us more vulnerable than working with adult victims of trauma. Isolation, loss of connectivity, worry about the future, becoming more sedentary are all risks that affect your professional quality of life.
Now let's speak about the professional quality of life. The professional quality of life comes twofold. You may experience compassion satisfaction or compassion fatigue, which can lead to burnout or secondary trauma. So compassion satisfaction comes from the pleasures you experience from working and helping within a caregiving system. Compassion fatigue is the negative aspects that you experience as a helper within a caregiving system. Under compassion fatigue is the feeling of being burnt out, which is basically being overwhelmed and just worn out. In addition, you may have secondary vicarious trauma. Secondary trauma exposure to event due to a relationship with the primary person. It's a feeling of being afraid and changing the way you view and experience life.
There are different kinds of stress. There's routine stress. That's related to keeping us moving, motivated, and just generally going through life. It's engaging in the responsibilities that we know we have to meet. In this sense, not all stress is bad stress. Then there is the stress brought about by a sudden negative change. The loss of job, illness, divorce, the death of someone close to us. Now we have traumatic stress. This is like a major accident, war, assault, national disaster. This exposure repetition leads to significant changes in our bodies and our brains. Our brain is very much involved in our response to stress. An important structure that's involved in our stress reaction is that of the amygdala. It is often called the emotional part of the brain. It is involved in emotional learning and memory. This is the part of the brain when we experience traumatic stress that actually senses the threat and sets off the alarm. Then the thinking brain comes in. This is actually the neocortex, or more specifically, the prefrontal cortex. This structure, though, quickly goes offline because the traumatic stress brings about a sensation of immediate threat. The amygdala activates the fight, flight, or freeze response. Part of the perceived danger may be a result of the memories that have been recorded and stored in the hippocampus. This is where memories of our traumatic events are stored. There is a connection between the amygdala and the hippocampus. Remember, the hippocampus is involved in long-term memory. This connection accounts for why emotionally arousing events like 9/11 tend to be well remembered after only a single experience. Emotionally charged events are remembered. Emotionally neutral, not so much.
We all respond to stress differently. Some of us respond behaviorally, and we cannot sleep at night. We start using alcohol and drugs, and some of us may even become aggressive. Those of us who respond physiologically can exhibit high blood pressure, increased heart rate, muscle tension, and even dry mouth. Some of us respond cognitively. We have problems concentrating, we're always thinking negative thoughts, we're constantly worrying, and we have poor memory. Some of us might even respond biochemically, in which we have an increased metabolism rate, so therefore we lose weight. Some of us have altered hormone levels, and some of us even have altered endorphin levels. Emotionally, some of us become depressed, exhibit high anxiety levels, are very irritable, cry for no reason, lose our sense of humor, and some of us might even contemplate suicidal ideation.
One of the signs or symptoms of trauma is emotional. Emotional trauma can include prolonged grief, anxiety, sadness, irritability, agitation, or anger. Could include a depressed mood, an altered sense of humor, helplessness, hopelessness, despair, a loss of interest, guilt, and feelings of weakness. Another symptom or sign of trauma could be psychological. Headaches, migraines, hives, rashes, heartburn, stomach pain, ulcers, aches, anxiety, hot sweats, exhaustion, decreased energy, and lethargy could all be part of psychological trauma.
As you've heard, stress manifests itself in many different ways. The cognitive effect of stress is thinking about others' well-being, difficulty making day-to-day decisions, thoughts of incompetency, and becoming judgmental of others, among many other factors. Stress may also have an effect on an individual's spirituality. It causes a lack of sense of purpose, a reduced sense of connection to others, and change relationships with meaning and hope. How have you seen some of these effects on your life? Some of us may be more aware of the behavioral changes that stress causes. Some of these effects are hypervigilance and scanning environment for danger, changed eating habits, or lack of self-control. Did you know that stress also can cause change in sex drive and substance use or self-medicating?
What is the upstairs and downstairs brain? While the downstairs brain, with its strong emotions and impulses, is fully built and functioning in young children, the upstairs brain is unfinished and is still under construction well into a person's 20s. Don't expect kids to be able to make good decisions, remain calm, and consider others' feelings all the time. What is vicarious trauma? Vicarious trauma is an occupational challenge for people working and volunteering in the field of victim services. Law enforcement, emergency medical services, fire services, and other allied professions such as education, due to their continuous exposure to victims of trauma and violence. This work-related trauma exposure can occur from such experiences as listening to individual clients recount their victimization, looking at videos of exploited children, reviewing case files, hearing about or responding to the aftermath of violence and other traumatic events day after day, and responding to mass violence incidents that have resulted in numerous injuries and deaths. What happens to those exposed to vicarious trauma? Educators respond to vicarious trauma in a number of ways. A change in their worldview is considered inevitable. People can either become more cynical or fearful. They can become more appreciative of what they have, or both. Responses to vicarious trauma can be negative, neutral, or positive, can change over time, and can vary from individual to individual, particularly with prolonged exposure.
Trauma-informed practice is the practice of utilizing strengths and remaining mindful, educated, and responsive to the effects of trauma throughout the process of working with someone. Trauma-informed practice utilizes the approach that every person we come in contact with has experienced a traumatic event within their lifetime.
Response to experiencing trauma or crisis is practicing self-care. Take the time to know yourself well. What are your triggers for stress? Practicing self-care can help you to manage your stress so that it doesn't become toxic. Some examples of practice are taking a long walk, reading a favorite book, or talking with friends. Find things that are relaxing for you. Maybe try something new. During this pandemic, I started engaging in yoga and mindfulness, and that helped lower my stress. And as we know, the best medicine for stress is always laughter. Remember, we want our self-care practices to be proactive so we can employ them easily when we are triggered. So what is self-compassion? Simply put, it is showing yourself the care and understanding that you would show to anyone else. Mindfulness and positive self-talk are strong components of self-compassion. What does positive self-talk look like? Well, if you say to yourself, that class was a failure because I'm a terrible teacher, or that presentation went horribly because I'm always too nervous when I speak. Pause. Take a beat and look through a different lens. Change your mindset. And you can alternatively say, I know this is a challenge for me, but I can work at it. And with practice, I'll get better. You need to begin to visualize and see yourself as your best self. You could write positive messages to yourself and make them your screensaver so you are constantly reminded of the you want to be. Self-compassion is not feeling sorry for yourself. It's not going on that lavish spending spree. And it's not about building your self-esteem. Simply, self-compassion is just building compassion and empathy for you as a person, allowing yourself to make mistakes, hold yourself harmless, and build your strategies to escape, relax, and play. This will make a happier and more productive you.